Hello everyone, welcome back to my YouTube channel. On today's tutorial, I will demonstrate how to cut and sew this lovely asymmetrical A-line dress for a little girl. I drafted the pattern for this in a previous tutorial. The link to the pattern drafting tutorial will be above and in the description box below. Hi, my name is Ayo and welcome to 011 Clothing Tutorials. On this channel, I upload DIYs, pattern drafting and sewing tutorials. If you haven't subscribed yet, kindly do so and do not forget to turn on the notification bell so that you'll be notified whenever I upload a new video. So now, let's get right into the tutorial. Thank you! These are the pattern pieces that I drafted in a previous tutorial. The link to the pattern drafting tutorial will be above and in the description box below. I will go ahead and cut out these pattern pieces on these fabrics. I have pinned the pattern pieces on the fabric with the right side of the fabric facing up. This is a single layer of fabric. On the first pattern piece, I used half an inch seam allowance all around the pattern except at the side seam and also at the hem where I used 1 inch seam allowance. I will now go ahead and cut it out. This is the second front pattern piece. I used half an inch seam allowance all around the pattern except for the side seam and the hem where I used 1 inch seam allowance. I will cut it out. So I have cut out these two front pieces on the fabric. I will also cut out the back piece on the fabric and I've already folded the fabric into 2 layers. I used half an inch seam allowance all around the pattern except for the side seam and the hem where I used 1 inch seam allowance. No seam allowance was added at the center back because of the zip allowance at the center back. I have pinned the front facing piece on this single layer of fabric and the right side of the fabric is facing up. I used half an inch seam allowance all around the pattern. At the hem, I used 1 inch seam allowance. I will cut it out. The facing piece will be used as a facing for this smaller front piece. I have pinned the back piece to the lining fabric and the lining fabric has been folded into 2 layers. I will cut it out. I will make the lining 3 inches shorter than the main fabric. I will trim off the excess lining. This is the front lining piece. I will pin it to the fabric like this. It will be cut on fold. I have already folded the fabric into 2 layers. I will pin the pattern in place like this. I will add half an inch seam allowance all around the pattern except for 1 inch seam allowance at the hem and also at the side seam. I will cut it out. I'll make the lining 3 inches shorter than the main fabric. So these are all the pieces needed to make the A-line dress. They have all been cut out on the main fabric and also the lining fabric. This is the interfacing that I will be using for the dress. I will fuse the interfacing to the wrong side of this facing piece. I will also fuse the interfacing to the upper part of this front lining piece on the wrong side. Also, the interfacing will be fused to the upper part of this back lining piece also on the wrong side. This is one of the front pieces, the piece with the pleats. I will notch the pleat positions. I will remove the pattern from the fabric like this. I will pin the pleats in place. Take note of the direction towards which I'm folding the pleats. I will now take it to my sewing machine and I will secure the pleats in place like this horizontally. I have here the smaller front piece and the facing piece. I will notch the positions of the center front on the necklines of the two pieces. I have fused interfacing to the wrong side of the facing piece. As you can see, I will remove the patterns from the fabric. I will place the facing piece on the front piece like this, right side to right side. I will pin the two pieces together like this. After pinning, I will take it to my sewing machine and I will stitch it in place from the center front to the hem using 1/2 inch sewing allowance. So now the stitching has been done. As you can see, I have trimmed off the excess fabric at this corner. I will turn it to the right side like this. I will notch the seam allowance like this. Be careful not to cut through the stitches. Then I will understitch the seam allowance to the facing like this. The understitching has been done. As you can see, this will secure the facing firmly in place. This is the front piece with the pleats. I have already sewn the pleats in place. I will now place the two front pieces together like this. Right sides will be together. I will pin the facing to the larger front piece, the front piece with the pleats. After pinning, I will sew it in place using 1/2 inch sewing allowance. So now the stitching has been done, as you can see, and I've overlocked the raw edges. I will pin the necklines of the two front pieces together like this, making sure that the center front points match up. I will sew the necklines together about 1/4 inch away from the edge of the fabric. So now that has been done, and the front of the dress is now a single piece. This is the front lining piece. I have fused interfacing to the upper part of the front lining piece on the wrong side. I will now place the lining piece on top of the main front piece like this, right side to right side. I will pin the necklines in place. After pinning, I will take it to my sewing machine and I will stitch it in place using 1/2 inch sewing allowance. So now the stitching has been done, as you can see. After stitching, I notch the seam allowance. And then I understitch the seam allowance to the neckline of the lining fabric. These are the back pieces. I will place the two lining pieces on top of the back pieces like this, right side to right side. As you can see, I have already fused interfacing to the upper part of the lining piece on the wrong side. I will now sew the necklines in place using 1/2 inch sewing allowance. So now the stitching has been done, as you can see. After stitching, I notch the seam allowances and then I understitch the seam allowance to the neckline of the lining fabric. I will now go ahead and fix this zip to the center back of the dress. So now that has been done, as you can see, I have fixed the zip. I will now place the front piece on top of the back piece like this, right side to right side. I will open up the shoulders like this. I will pin them in place, making sure that the seam lines match up. After pinning, I will take it to my sewing machine and I will stitch it in place using 1/2 inch sewing allowance. So now that has been done, as you can see, I have sewn the shoulders together. I will now sew the arm opening in place. I will open up the dress like this. I will roll it up. I will now flip over the lining and the main fabric so that right sides are together. I will pin in place, making sure that the shoulder seam lines match up. After pinning, I will stitch it in place using 1/2 inch sewing allowance. So now that has been done, as you can see, for the 2 arm openings. After sewing, I notch the seam allowance and then I understitch the seam allowance to the arm opening of the lining. I will now sew the side seams together. I have already overlocked the ends of the lining pieces. I will sew the side seams of the dress, lining to lining and fabric to fabric using 1 inch sewing allowance. I will make sure that the seam lines at the base of the arm opening match up. So now that has been done, as you can see, I have sewn the side seams together and I've given the side seams and the old dress a thorough press with my pressing iron. I have also hemmed the lower part of the dress. As for this extension beyond the center front, I will fix these 2 buttons to it so as to hold it firmly in place. So now that has been done, as you can see, and this is the final look of the asymmetrical A-line dress for a little girl. So that's it guys, we are done. If you find this video helpful, do not forget to give it a thumbs up, drop a comment down below, share this video with your friends who are interested in sewing, and do not forget to subscribe to my YouTube channel if you haven't done so already. See you in my next tutorial. Bye and thank you so much for watching.